Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, live today on Monday, August 19th, a week removed from the second week of the NFL preseason, all the games concluding yesterday, and that's one of the first things we're going to talk about here today, a very heavy quarterback-centered episode on today's show. We're going to talk about the rookie performances, a bunch of them playing in their second preseason game this week. Then also, later on, more on one of those rookie quarterbacks, Michael Penix, and the decision by the Falcons to not let him play anymore in the preseason. Plus, Gardner Minshew winning the starting job for the Las Vegas Raiders are all coming up on today's show, plus a couple more down the line. But before we get started on those topics, I'd like to remind you guys, if you guys have any questions, comments, or any opinions you'd like to share, we definitely want to hear them here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. It's a big reason why it makes this show so enjoyable, to hear your guys' thoughts on anything I say or on any of the topics I have for you guys. And now, if you want to absolutely make sure that I see those questions and they feature on the show, make sure to use the quick and easy super chat feature down there at the bottom of the screen. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content that you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit the super chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as exciting as possible. But also, if you do prefer an alternative, you could still use the GSMCpodcast.net tip and donations link if you do prefer to use that way to still support our show. We couldn't do this without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you guys as part of our community. But with that now out of the way, we could start on the first topic on hand, talking some more about these rookie quarterbacks over the weekend. Still showing some some more struggles this week for some of them, but still overall, very solid performances by three guys that I wanted to bring up on this first segment. With that being the case, I wanted to bring up the first one on here, Caleb Williams, playing in his second game, this time against the Cincinnati Bengals, was out there for roughly about the same amount of time, and I don't think just on the eye test alone, it looked as clean as maybe last week. This week he had a couple more struggles, a couple more tight throws to make over the middle of the field, and then some tighter, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just some more eccentric throws there against the Cincinnati Bengals. And, he finished still all right with a decent stat line, 6 for 13 for 75 yards and a rushing touchdown this time. And those off-platform throws that were still there were still super impressive. I think he attempted them more this week just because the coverage was a little bit better, maybe playing a little bit better of a defense against the Cincinnati Bengals than potentially the Buffalo Bills, depending on who was starting. But, just those off-platform throws were still there, and that's a good sign always to see. The one that stands out was the one down the left sideline to Rome Odunze, going left and throwing across his body right on the dot to Rome Odunze, which was great. Not only to see the throw and how just ridiculously easy Caleb Williams made it seem, but the fact that it was right on the outside shoulder. Rome Odunze also, that connection with Caleb is also a great thing to see. So everything kind of culminated into that one play. There was another one, again to Rome Odunze in the back of the end zone, but unfortunately he was just out of bounds. Another great throw by Caleb, rolling to his right and throwing it into the corner of the end zone. That would have been his touchdown, but then later on in the playing time that he had, he again found himself in the red zone. The play sort of broke down. He had good pocket awareness, which was what I took away from that play. Escaped pressure again, rolled all the way back to the left-hand side of the field and just ran it in. And those situations are always interesting to me just because a lot of times you see guys, one, try to buy too much time and it puts them in trouble, but Caleb, very aware of what that pocket was like at that point in time. Very good awareness. He rolls out and then rolls all the way back to the left, which more often than not usually ends up in someone trying to force something or a bad throw or something like that. I like how Caleb kept his composure and just ran it in rather than fitting it into a tight window into the back of the end zone or something like that. And just overall, his overall performance, there were some throws that got away from him. He tried to fit it into tight windows. He was successful with some. unsuccessful with others. But again, nothing too crucial to write home about. I think it's still maintained its steady level of performance for Caleb with all the expectations on his shoulders. I don't think anybody could say that they were disappointed. It's just almost more of the same, with I think a little bit better of a challenge with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bears ended up winning this game as well, which was great. Then the second quarterback I wanted to mention on here was Jayden Daniels. Got to see a little bit more of him this time around. Played about an entire quarter, and he finished with a very efficient stat line, 10 of 12 for 78 yards. And while he might not have scored a touchdown or anything like that, there was no real wow throws in terms of, on the run, a deep ball down the left sideline or something like that, or just fitting it into a tight window. What I really was left impressed about with Jayden Daniels was that I think in the first game you saw the rhythm and the control of everything maybe was lacking a little bit, but this time it seemed like he was controlling everything. He seemed like he was very confident, very calm in there, maintained a good rhythm with all the plays that happened. It looked like every throw was on time and that all the offense was on the same page. And while that's a two-sided street there, obviously, with the receiver and the quarterback being on the same page, a lot of it has to do with the quarterback calling the right play, making sure everybody knows the timing of it all, and making sure the throw is right on the money when it's supposed to be there. And I thought Jayden did a good job of doing that this time around. The ball placement, the accuracy, and everything like that, every throw, at least I saw him make in that game, was, as soon as either the wide receiver turned around, which goes back to that timing aspect, or it was on the outside shoulder, away from the defensive back, more towards the sideline. And those are the little nuances that sometimes you don't get with rookie quarterbacks. A lot of the time when they're just trying to get the throw out, or they know the read is supposed to be there, they know the throw's just supposed to get there, they don't really pay attention too much to the ball placement, putting it on the right side of the body of the receiver. And Jayden showing that already gives me more confidence that, just like Caleb, this guy, it was announced today that he was going to be the starter. This guy in Jayden Daniels has just as much of an opportunity to wow everybody in his first year with the Commanders. And even though you look at the rosters and they might not be, player for player equal, Jayden Daniels still, compared to Caleb, I think could bring you a lot of the same things with the Washington Commanders this year. And, overall, it was a pretty efficient day. Nothing too exciting to write home about, but even that, still in and of itself, the efficiency can give you more of the same just from last week, building on it and gaining more confidence now as the official starter of the Commanders. I think they're feeling pretty good about themselves, naming this guy the starter after a stat line like this, now knowing that he's going to be the guy in Washington. Everything's going to be centered around him now, planning it around him, making sure that he is ready to go for their Week 1 matchup. And I think this week is a little hint of what we could see later on with Jayden Daniels. And then the last quarterback I wanted to mention is Bo Nix. He played on Sunday, or just last night, against the Green Bay Packers. And again, another strong showing from Bo Nix. Another efficient performance, too, from a rookie quarterback. 8 for 9 for 80 yards and 1 touchdown. Compared to last week, a little similar to Jayden Daniels. He looked more at ease, a little bit more under control, because last week I felt like he was running a lot, escaping the pockets a couple times, making some throws across his body, different arm angles and things like that, which is all right. He's capable of doing it, Bo Nix, but this time it looked like, again, more he knew the timing of everything. He knew where everyone was supposed to be, how the coverage was supposed to develop, and where his guys were going to be attacking those zones. So I was left pretty impressed with that with Bo Nix, and more, it's starting to become evident to me why Sean Payton was such a big fan of him. While I still had my criticism and my doubts about him and being the starter for this Broncos team just because of the rest of his supporting cast, this guy alone, just looking at Bo Nix alone and these last two games, has really changed my mind a little bit about Bo Nix. I'm not afraid of saying that. I was feeling that he wouldn't be as efficient as he is right now, but clearly, coming in as a more experienced rookie into this NFL level, it's still a big transition, but I think having those extra years at Auburn and then also Oregon has paid off for him. Sean Payton clearly likes him. The ability to not take sacks, take the smart play, make the right read and everything like that is becoming very evident. He made a couple of nice throws over the middle. He showed his ability to run once again as well. He threw another touchdown throw. He threw one, but he was across the line of scrimmage. And then later on in the game, he threw one to Tim Patrick, which was great to see for Tim Patrick as well, not playing football in a long time. So overall, these three guys almost showed the same thing, but in different ways. I feel like they are similar in a way just because they all could very well start for each of their teams, but they each have a little bit something of their game that makes them unique, and I'm excited to see them after back-to-back performances like these for all three of these guys. I think all of them have made a very good case for themselves to start week one. We know Caleb and Jayden announced today are going to start. I think a lot of people are starting to see that Bo Nix has a really good chance of beating Jarrett Stidham out for that job. So hopefully he starts. Hopefully, I always love seeing how this new beginning starts for these teams looking to find their franchise quarterback. But those are the guys that really stood out to me. I failed to mention one of them being Michael Penix, who was supposed to play this weekend, but he didn't. It's not like he got injured or anything like that. It was just a choice by the Atlanta Falcons to decide not only to sit him for this second preseason game, but to also rule him out for the rest of the preseason. And that's going to be the second segment coming up after this break. The Atlanta Falcons announced its decision to not play Michael Penix. We're going to talk about what Raheem Morris had to say about it, my thoughts on it, and why I'm not a big fan of it. So stick around and find out why I feel that way after this short break. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.